Hey guys, somebody asked me to do a video for grandparents, and I was actually planning on doing that next, so that was pretty cool timing there. There's so much to say, and I obviously can't cover everything, and every family structure is different, so I'm just going to target Christian grandparents, and of course your children and grandchildren, or your children may be raising your grandchildren in a godly home, and they also may not be. Either way, this is for a Christian grandparent and how you can bless your children and grandchildren with your high calling from the Lord as a grandparent. Obviously, I have no idea what it's like to be a grandparent, but I do know what it's like to have a grandparent or have grandparents, and I know what it's like to have be the mother with children, and what I would love from my children's grandparents for them, you know? So having grandparents is an immense blessing from God. It is such a special relationship and such a special role that I think is a treasure to children. And just the memories, and God is just so good. You know, what a wonderful, wonderful role in your life. Your parents are wonderful, and then their parents, I mean, just talk about being showered with love, you know? So grandparents in a child's life is such a blessing from God, and being a grandparent is such a high calling from God. So you know, it's not just some season in your life where you're old and you can lay back and relax now. You still have a calling and a role to live out according to Scripture and as a believer. And so I just want to encourage you, grandparents, to use your role in this special season in your life to truly bless your grandchildren and your children with your role. So I just jotted this down. It doesn't have a very tidy flow, so it might like bounce back and all that, but whatever. You guys can keep up. You're smart. The first thing I put, of course, is to play the number one thing. I think grandparents need to play a big role in a child's wisdom and knowledge and training and teaching of the word. As a Christian grandparent, you should be actively living out your faith for your grandchildren to see. You should go alongside your children and train and teach and just pour the gospel into your grandchildren's lives the same way that you would anybody, really. Share the gospel at every opportunity. Live in a godly manner so that they can see you living out the fruits of the Spirit, as mentioned in Galatians 5:22, love, joy, peace, kindness, patience, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. So do those things, and your grandchildren will see that and learn from you. Talk about the Lord, His blessings, His creation. Let them know how God has changed your life and what you've learned in your life about the Lord and how good God is, and just like be another voice into their life about God and their need for salvation. Parents need the church and grandparents to play, to come alongside them and witness to their kids. You know, that's the beauty of the body and just all of us coming together. And, you know, if you're a Christian grandparent and your children are Christians, then you're brothers and sisters in Christ. So you're part of the church. So the church is all working together. So work with your children and share the gospel to your grandchildren and live out the love of Jesus every day. Something I hear a lot is that grandparents get offended when their children do things differently when raising their kids. So I wrote, like, don't take offense when your kids are doing something different than you did. Obviously, you know, like, ask yourself this question: did I do everything right? No. So do I want my children to do a better job than I did? I hope the answer is yes, if you truly love your children and your grandchildren. So then don't be offended when they do something different. Now, just because they're doing something different doesn't mean that thing you did wrong, but everybody's different and everybody thinks differently and everybody wants different things. So if they're doing something different, then just accept that everybody's different and that's the way that they prefer to do it. So instead of being offended, support it and respect it. Something huge, I think, that grandparents, that I think that it's just a natural thing that we do. But I hope that I can learn and not do this when I'm a grandparent, but to just offer your opinion when it's not asked for. I think that you, a very wise approach to take is asking questions instead of telling your children what they are doing wrong or what they should do, or let's just say, I don't know, some random example. Why do you only let your kids watch 30 minutes of TV a day instead of, there's nothing wrong with TV, why does it matter to you? Question. Now the question provides a genuine curiosity, and so it's very, very less likely that your child will be offended at your opinion when unasked for. And so they can answer you, oh, well, we just don't want them to be in front of the TV for too long, so we've limited it to 30 minutes a day. And now as a grandparent, you can just say, oh, okay, and move on. That is not necessarily a battle that really needs to be fought, guys. Why would you be fighting for more TV for your kids? If you think 5 hours of TV is harmless, you may be right. But why are you going to choose that battle? Who cares, right? Who cares? So choose your battles of what you want to discuss and what you want to just leave unaddressed with your kids and what they're doing with your grandchildren. It's their kids in the end, So pick your battles. Don't just give your opinion when it's not asked for. And if you want to talk about something, start it off by asking genuine questions of curiosity so that you can hear their thoughts and their ideas and their reasoning versus you just saying everything you think, because that's the selfish route. The question and genuine curiosity is the selfless route. Selfishness as a grandparent can probably cause crazy amount of tension and drama and unnecessary conflict and all that stuff, and as it can anywhere, obviously. So that's a really big one. Something else, try to find another way to spoil your grandchildren besides feeding them disgusting food that's horrible for their bodies and watching TV. There are so many wonderful things that you can do to spoil your grandchildren. Spoil them with time with you. Spoil them with lots of games. Spoil them with taking them to cool places where they can learn amazing things. I mean, there is no reason why that I can comprehend why, if you love somebody, the thing that brings you most joy is to give them a disgusting sweet treat that's going to rot their teeth, make them sick, and kill them young. Why is that? Why does that bring you joy? To watch your grandchild do something that's bad for them. That's like saying, I want to watch my grandchildren destroy themselves. Why? That's not fun. Do something that's good for them. Help them to grow in some beneficial way, So be creative with your ways of spoiling your grandchildren instead of giving them junky stuff to eat, and just sitting in front of the TV for endless hours with no mental stimulation and probably filling their brain with garbage. I'm not saying never give them anything yummy to eat and never, watch a show with them, but, be creative and do other stuff. If you have a son who has children, let your child lead his family. He has left you and now cleaved to his wife, and he is the head of his home. And so he needs the freedom to lead his family without your interference. Sure, he may call upon you for advice, for wisdom. Awesome. Welcome that when it's done. But when you offer your advice or your opinion when it's not asked for, you could be interfering with their family. You could be playing kind of like a crutch to where you're not allowing him to lead because you're always there to lead him for him. And of course you can cause conflict and tension in the home. If you have a daughter, encourage her. Encourage her by reminding her of her role, to embrace her role. Encourage her when you see her submitting well, respecting well, following her husband well. Don't ever, ever, ever interfere with her marriage by offering your unasked for opinion or your opinion about something her husband has done or hasn't done. Because when you talk about your daughter's husband to her, she may already be struggling with the same exact thing that you're bringing up, and all you're doing is adding a log to the fire. You're feeding her bitterness. You are unintentionally, you may not realize it, but you're causing bitterness and division from her husband. So instead of feeding that or pointing out things that bother you, close your mouth and help her by encouraging her. Because when somebody hears, wow, I really admire the way you respect and just follow your husband, what's that going to do? Make them not do it? No, it's going to encourage them to do it better. So you're encouraging her more in her role. Never, ever point out things about her husband that is obvious may be a bother to her. All you're doing is feeding bitterness and possibly messing with her marriage. And this was just a question, do you want your foolish, careless words to cause a conflict or strain in your daughter's marriage? Or do you want to play a role of a great supporter and a fighter for her marriage? I hope the second one is what you want. And if that's the case, then support, encourage, and allow her to follow and submit to her husband instead of pointing things out. Because we're all women, and kind of all the same things bother us. So, if you notice something in her husband, she probably already has noticed it. And the fact that she's not mentioning it is really, really good. But if you mention it, you may catch her in a weak moment and really cause a lot of damage. So let's be careful with our mouths. Don't sound like the world when you speak about your grandchildren. There's so many little sayings out there that grandparents say. My job is to spoil them. I enjoy them more than I enjoyed my child. It's not my job to raise them. I can just enjoy them, fill them with treats, and then send them back to their parents. These are all like worldly things you hear grandparents say. If you're a Christian grandparent, I hope you don't say those things, because no, it's not your job to spoil them. No, hopefully, if you are enjoying them more now than you enjoyed your children, that's fine, but I wouldn't go announcing that to the world, because that's not very encouraging to your children. You should be encouraging your children to enjoy their children, to find joy and just like really, really delight in them, even though the years are long and hard, and training and discipline is very, very hard. There's still so much joy to find in parenting. And so when you say something foolish like that, that's not very encouraging to your children. You should teach them to enjoy their children. How should you sound different from other grandparents as a Christian grandparent? Use obviously the Lord, always sounding encouraging and uplifting and positive. Something else, use your spiritual gifts to invest in your children and your grandchildren. If you are an encourager, encourage. If you're wise in your faith, share your wisdom. If you are fervent in prayer, pray with your grandchildren. Are you in the Word a lot? Read the Word with them. Do you enjoy certain things that God has made, like nature, whatever? Involve them in that. Invest in them. Include them in the things that are gifts for you naturally. And you will leave such a wonderful, wonderful legacy. Teach them of the Lord alongside their parents. I put that with like 5 exclamation points, because that's what your children need, is for you to come alongside and teach your grandchildren the love of Jesus and their need for the gospel. Don't teach them worldly nonsense. There's already enough worldly nonsense surrounding us everywhere. We don't need our kids to be exposed to more worldly nonsense. That is like the last thing we want. So teach them the good, and let the world come and combat the world with your children and all that foolishness and worldly nonsense that are lies and just like warped pictures and thoughts and mentalities that are everything but godly and biblical. What do you want to leave for your grandchildren? Answer that question to yourself. Think, how do I want my grandchildren to remember me? And now examine your answer. Is it something selfish or selfless that you just answered? Did you just answer, I want my grandkids to remember me as being cool and fun, and they did things with me that they never got to do with their parents or whatever? Or do you want your grandchildren to remember something eternal about you? My grandma taught me about Jesus. My grandma lived out the gospel every day. My grandmother was so hospitable. She always was serving others, taking people in. My grandmother was a mentor to the young women at their church. She taught young wives and young women how to live for the Lord. My grandmother used her time wisely and well and used her gifts to serve God. She was a worker for the kingdom. You know, what do you want your grandkids to remember about you? Well, whatever that is, every day you have the opportunity to work towards that. So use your time well. You're older, you don't have kids anymore, you have more freedom and more flexibility, and you can do a lot more with your time than your children can. So use it well. It's not vacation time just because you're older. It's still life, and we still are running this race for Jesus, and we still need to use our time for Jesus. So whatever role you're in this case, we're talking to grandparents, use it, use it. Support your children in their decisions. I kind of touched on this already. We're all different, and we're all going to do things differently. You really shouldn't bring anything up to your kids